I'd like you to tell us what is narcissism and what is a narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay. And narcissism is let's say a cluster of symptoms or a cluster of behaviors. So that would include a grandiose sense of self in terms of a person thinking that they are quite important, and we're all important as humans, but this person tends to think they are more important than everybody else. And not only that do they think that they expect that you believe that they are as well. So you have that. Then you have the person, a narcissist might be quite selfish, looking out only for self and what they need and what they want. And with that comes sometimes a lack of consideration for what other people need and want. So you might find that they're not very empathetic. They're kind of unable to feel empathy for, okay, you're upset that you didn't get this, but that doesn't matter as long as I fulfill, because that's what's important to everybody here, isn't it? Right? And they have this sense of entitlement to you, entitlement to your time if they need it, and an insatiable need for admiration. Right? Because they have convinced themselves, and I mean, if you go into where this thing comes from, and the underlying thing being real insecurity, they need that to keep them. That's kind of their fuel. So when we say what's a narcissist, that's a tricky question, because people use that word very loosely, and that's the thing, right? But somebody could have narcissistic traits. They could have some of these characteristics, but not meet criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, which is you have to have a certain number of these symptoms, and not just in one instance, or only with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or only with work colleagues. It has to be pervasive,
like the way of life.
Right? And so just generally, any mental illness, any psychological disorder must be, one, pervasive, and two, create some sort of dysfunction. So the narcissist now would leave a trail of destruction, so to speak, in his or her life.
So, in what way? So, we want to hear. I know this evening we're going to touch on the traits for sure. So, you all get your pens and papers, because you can tick off, you know, if ABC has these traits and how many of these traits.
We diagnosing.
So make sure you get a pen and paper for that. And as a way of life as well, so you'd understand better in your interaction with persons, you know, some triggers, as it were.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Or we can identify if the person who is checking might be a narcissist as well.
Right, they can check themselves. Because I saw online people were doing that. They were actually internalizing and checking to see if they have any of those. And that's a good way to start. That's an excellent.
I'm glad you brought up that, because I can't tell you how many people I encounter that diagnose others with narcissistic personality disorder. And so, all right, so that's what I was saying, right? So the point about a personality disorder being first of all, a very serious clinical diagnosis. So we don't pelt that around to anybody and just go diagnosing people or how, right? We put things into context of this situation that's happening now, and context of where the thoughts and behaviors are coming from in terms of their past, etc. Right? So you could have the traits, or you could meet criteria for the disorder, which are two different things.
Okay. Right? So, wow. Okay, very interesting. So in going back here, can you tell us what are some of the traits? Because, you know, that whole lack of empathy for other people, how far would you say it goes?
Okay.
Because it's only just about them.
Yes, exactly. So, you have a coworker who they do something on the job. They play music really loudly, the music that they like, because it's part of their process for them to function well and for them to keep their minds clear. And somehow in the person with narcissistic personality disorder, and somehow in their mind, that's all that matters. They are all that matters. So you may come and say, listen, those songs put me in a state of depression, or those songs make it really hard for me to do my job, and I'm falling behind, and the manager is on my back. they're not going to go into the space of, oh no, Madonna really struggling with this music. Let me get some headphones, or let me. They're not able to go to that place, mentally, psychologically. It's just a matter of, but Madonna, I need this. This is important to me. You need to realize and understand that this is part of my process, and that's what's important. And they're not.
So they're considering
very
that.
focused on self.
Wow.
So narcissistic people do a lot of boundary breaking. So that's one thing you have to do with narcissists, is set up your boundaries, and you also have to, I want to say, offer them consequences. I don't want to say threaten, but you also have to put down some consequences, some sensible consequences, and stick to them. So there's no wiggle room with most personality disorders, right? There's no wiggle room really where that is concerned, right?
So I'm going straight into what are some of the behaviors?
Yeah.
What are some of the traits?
It looks really interesting.
Yeah. So like I said, the grandiosity. So you go to a restaurant and you have certain demands that, you must be served in a certain way, right away. Things that are not necessarily always realistic, right? But to them, in their world, in their bubble, it is. The lack of empathy, being quite selfish. So you might be in a relationship or have a parent who is narcissistic, and they make rules for the household, or rules for the vacation, or rules for how we do things on the mornings to get to work and so on. And you might struggle with some of those those rules and those things that they put in place, that some of that structure, but that is of no consequence to them, right? You need to fall in line. So your boundaries, your needs, these things don't really matter. Narcissistic people have a hard time with people disagreeing with them or not having them on a pedestal. So now these are extreme behaviors I'm talking about here. But this is why when you say somebody has a disorder, personality disorder, we are careful, because the narcissistic personality disordered person does have a severe set of symptoms. Right? And oftentimes people do struggle with working with them, living with them, being friends with them. And it's not until they start losing friends, losing jobs, several complaints, because they will always somehow in their mind make sense of your complaints. So let's say I bought a car. No, I'm the narcissist. My car is obviously better than yours. I don't care what you have. So let's say you eventually bought the same car. Me as a narcissist, I will find a way to prove that my car is better than yours. Either because the sun hits it differently, because you can't be no one can be on my level, right? The sun hits it differently, the color is better. It's the same year, the same model, same make, yes, but, there's somehow they must keep themselves on a pedestal, right? So it's a lot of fragility happening under the surface, a lot of insecurity happening.
So is it that you feel that you're walking on eggshells around them?
Sometimes. So if your boss is a narcissist, they may make you feel that way because they may be quite condescending, and they may create a glass ceiling because you can't elevate to anything on their level ever. Right? So you might feel that way, especially if they are quite berating and so on,
I was talking to someone recently, and she was saying, Madonna, I think he's a narcissist, and I'm like, but I'm having that topic, I'm discussing it kind of thing, and she was talking about some of his traits, and she actually went and looked it up, she said, but when I went online, I was like, wow, so many people, hearing, they're saying that they be leaving. So what are some of the things in a relationship from your experience dealing with persons who would have been in relationships that would have stood out?
Yeah. Well, disagreement. So it comes up a lot in conflict. It creates conflict, right? So it's just that same thing, first of all, of entitlement of your time. So you have a job that you love, that's important to you, a career that you're building, your partner has a job that's important to them. It's a career that they're building. But let's say you have a really important meeting happening this morning, but they need to do lunch and they need to impress
Or they need
whoever
your
they
vehicle.
Oh, right, or they need your vehicle, right? Or let's even say you have an important lunch and they have a lunch that they just kind of, they have a partner who come in and they want their girlfriend or their boyfriend, whoever next to them, right? It does not matter how important your meeting is to your career. At this point in time, I need you here because that's what's going to make me look good. So, as long as I don't need your time, then you have your time. There you go. So that sort of entitlement, the lack of flexibility or compromise a lot of times, because of course my way or the highway. I know best. I'm as a narcissist, I know best. I don't understand. Like, I'm comfortable with this. Let's just go with this. So they stand their ground very well, and they could be quite intimidating, and that's why a lot of people don't stand their ground against them, especially right away, because they will quite convince you that it is their way or the highway, and that they do know best, right? And you would doubt yourself. Gaslighting is another sort of thing that narcissists might do. So they will try to make you think that, okay, no, you're crazy. No, that didn't happen. That's not what I meant. Are you serious? Relax. Invalidate your feelings and all of those kinds of things, because it's not what's important here right now. So now somebody with narcissistic personality disorder may not have all of these traits together. They may have different ones, because you have the vulnerable narcissist and then you have the grandiose narcissist.
Okay.
Right. So
when you say vulnerable narcissist, what do you mean?
Right. So they crave a lot of intimacy, right? A lot of intimacy and a lot of validation. So whereas the grandiose narcissist is already convinced of their validation, it's you can't try to invalidate them, right? They already know how great they are, right? But you need to shape up or ship out, right? The vulnerable narcissist might be aggravated and irritated if you don't you don't give them that praise and that admiration that they do need, so. Oh.
Wow. In talking there, because I had a conversation with her, because I wanted to find out, and to say you're serious and that kind of thing now. So she was talking about just what you were saying there, the invasion of space, because she had set certain boundaries, and she had a situation and they didn't want to go. Yes. And she's like, whatever, kind of thing. Yes. And she said she just went, and sleep or whatever and that kind of thing. Eventually they just left. Yeah. So she was like, she felt like they were invading her space. Yes. And you said something, with that kind of bold.
Yes. But what I would look for then is this common behavior? So is this what this person does all the time in the relationship with you? Have they done it in past relationships as well? Okay. And do they do it with friends, family members, right? Do they do it other? So is it pervasive? Is it in every aspect of their life, right? Before we say, hey, this person is a narcissist, this person has narcissistic personality disorder.
So then they would have to do a research on previous relationships and that kind of thing, and that's why I remember when Vernice was around, we used to say ask questions and do background checks and that kind of thing, because the patterns, they seldom change. Yes. They just move from one to another, and then we going into relationships and we don't ask questions. People don't want to ask exes because you're hating and you're damaging yourself because you don't know who you're going to get involved with, and they obviously would blame the other person and all that kind of thing. Yes. So
I mean, I believe in when I say background checks, I mean it's important to kind of know, if you're getting into a relationship, what has happened before. I mean, people do change, so you don't hold things against people. People do go through things and learn from experiences and so on. But if you notice patterns, then, hopefully the person is open enough to say, well, okay, that's interesting. That does happen quite a lot. Because, sometimes somebody in a relationship or a friendship or anything, because they are what a lot of times what they've always known. So their normal is what has always been normal.
Right.
They may not know that there's a different way to behave in a relationship, or a different way to receive love, or a different way to give love. So that's why when couples, a lot of times, sometimes a gentleman might come in for therapy and say, you know what, this is the last straw from a relationship. She says I am narcissistic, so I have to see somebody else, this kind of thing. And a lot of times they don't have narcissistic personality disorder. They're just spoiled or have some bad behaviors, but they are so able to rationalize and see and empathize and all these other things that go against a narcissist,
right,
that it's not narcissistic personality disorder. It might not even be a narcissistic trait,
okay,
because they are able to have that insight and they're able to make those changes and to have that empathy. They just didn't understand that my mom always did this. I didn't understand that that's not what people like. That's not what's right, So sometimes getting to know oneself and sort of introspecting and just holding a mirror up to somebody works. For a narcissist, it's not going to be that easy.
Tell us how it's been with a narcissist.
It's going to shatter everything that they know themselves to be. The mere fact that they have to come and sit down in front of somebody because someone says, I have a problem, that's already a problem for them. So they would probably first try to convince you that there's nothing really wrong. People tend to have these problems. So you're the problem, and you're the problem, and the co-worker, and the girlfriend, and the wife, and I probably just need to figure out what it is these people need, right? Other than that, if, as I said, they've left that trail of destruction, they might come and say, you know what, okay, it's been years, I've been creating a mess of my life, and I want a change to be made. Very rarely would a narcissistic personality disordered person come in having self-diagnosed.
Very rare.
They might have heard people say you're narcissistic, but they may not have sat down and said, oh, I look at these traits and I am a narcissist. That's difficult for them to do. And what people, it's easy to demonize a narcissist because of the symptoms. But these are people who actually do struggle and suffer a lot as well. They have struggled with something in the past, more times than not. And because of their behaviors and the trail of destruction that they've been leaving, they continue to suffer. And a lot of times they don't understand why. They don't have the insight. They don't, because of what the disorder is, they don't even care to have the insight.
So let me ask you, now you said that narcissism, the traits have to be pervasive, right? And so it must go from not just romantic relationships, but into office relationships, everything.
Family.
Right? So if it is that you think that you are dating a narcissist, you can't find their ex-partner, right? So you don't have contact with their ex.
Yes.
Is it possible that you can go to someone else that they have had a relationship with, a platonic relationship, might be a work, whatever the case might be, and see if those traits are persistent even with them?
Well, with a narcissist, just hearing their stories about what happened during the day, because they will have issues. So if you have a partner who is having issues, they will come home and tell you stories about people at work and how obnoxious and unreasonable other people are, and the things that they do and that they don't get, or just the way that they talk and they sell themselves. You will see it emerging, or you will hear about it emerging. I guess if you wanted to investigate, which might be the person might see as as violation of their privacy, But at some point you might meet mom, brothers and sisters, and you will observe this person interacting with their friends. All the friends go out for dinner. How do they interact? What is the aura? What is the right? Must they be the one who is the leader and the center of attention among the friends? You will see it. You will see things, and you will know that it's not normal.
Madonna always says that you need to look at how they treat other people, not just how they treat you.
Yeah.
Right.
How they treat other people matters also.
Exactly.
Wow.
A narcissist, as you talked about how you will know in a relationship, a narcissist sometimes also will comment on, try to change how you do your hair, how you dress and things like this. Because remember, you are not you now. You are you part of me. So when people see you, I need to be proud because
you're representing me.
Heavens forbid, exactly, that somebody tells me my girlfriend or boyfriend is, looking this way. Or, you understand?
So you're supposed to have it together
yes,
all the time.
but what is together? Together might not be what you want. What you think is together. It might be their standard. Don't wear your hair like that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Right? And they think they're entitled to you in that manner.
So would it come across dictatorial?
It could.
Yeah.
It could, yes.
Because you are now their trophy.
Exactly. So everything is back up being about them. And you hear that a lot of people who think their parents are narcissistic, their parents will push them into things, and people on the outside might say, oh, look at your mother cares so much because they support you and push. Yes, but she does that for her friends, for her people. It's not necessarily, there's never a conversation about what do you want to do.
I see the lines ringing. I know you all want to call in because somehow you're sensing some. I want to get into some traits that will just propel people to call some more, about narcissism. And that's what we're talking about. Hi, sis, my sis in Long Island. She's locked on. And good evening, going out to Pauline, Harold, Carlton, Alana, Eric, everybody on my life. Good evening. And yes, we're dealing with narcissism. So, hi, good evening.
Good evening, Madonna.
Good evening. Welcome.
And Happy New Year to you.
Same to you as well. And who's this again?
And also my gynec studio here as well with you. God, which is blessings upon you all.
Good evening.
2020.
Okay, sis and Dean and
continue the great work that you are doing out here. This is Lynette, by the way.
Hi, Lynette.
And
Always good to speak.
Lynette always called to give her opinion or her take on this narcissistic or whatever topic you all have going on tonight. My take on this person or person being a narcissistic person, for me, is the most selfish person that you'll have out. Everything about them is just me, or I. I think that is something that has grown within one psychic for a period, so therefore it becomes chronic, and at times it is very hard to get out from their system. Because as I said, it's all about me. It's very selfish. It sees everything their way and would not have no tendency to change. Even if they change for a day, the following day they go right back to their own selfish self. So this is my take on it. So you all have a blessed night. And you'll get back home safely.
Thanks for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your contribution. And, so you can call us, 622-1981 as well. And we can, interact with you. And you would realize, well, if he, she is a narcissist, if you see in some sort of traits. And that's not a diagnosis, but...
He, she, or me.
He, she, or me. Well, you should say me too.
I thought you agreed we're not doing that.
Right, so...
I don't know what I'm saying.
Or the person... Oh, right, they do themselves as well. Right, yeah, we were saying that. She was saying
He, she, or me.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Hi, good evening. Welcome. Hello.
Yeah, good night, dear.
Hi.
It's one of the trees.
Can you speak up a little bit for us, please?
I'm now hooked up on the channel 98.1.
All right.
Right. What's the meaning of that? I'm not sure.
Narcissist. She wants to find out the meaning of
Oh, you mean
narcissism.
narcissist? That's where they say you may be crazy or like if you.
Oh, no, it's not crazy.
Well, we have a clinical psychologist here. She'll let you know.
No, from my knowledge, I know a narcissist is where they classify you as like if you get on erratic or so, they say you're crazy because I have been in that situation with my family. And I was classified as that. Where, hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. So can she just explain it as I'm on the line holding on? I
Yeah.
just want to explain.
All right, you want to hold or we'll tell you
I
off
want to
here?
hear what she's saying.
All right.
We'll continue a little
You okay, good. She says her family, they had diagnosed her as a narcissist and said she was crazy and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
she wants to understand
Yeah.
exactly, the behavior.
Yeah, I have a real problem with the word crazy. I always say it because what is crazy? That's not a clinical. I don't use that word. I don't know what that diagnosis is. But I assume or that I've gathered that I think when people talk about crazy, they're thinking of somebody with that's expressing psychotic symptoms, who might be a little erratic and so on. She's saying that she was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and they said she was
I don't think
erratic.
she was actually diagnosed. I think the family was telling her that she was narcissistic.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So she wants.
Yes,
She wants some clarity.
All right. So
the definition of.
All right, so one sec. Hi, good evening.
Yeah, I got caught up. I'm the same person, right? What happened? After my parents died, we had issues at home, and I just argued the point, but I had nobody for me. I had nobody to stand up for me because I'm from a broken marriage. My husband was, I left an abused marriage too. And my own siblings, they said I'm crazy. And my age, I'm 47. Everybody has issues in life. We all have stress. But for me, I know how to deal with my stress. All I needed from my siblings was to say, I love you. Let us sit. Let us go into the definitions. Let us make definitions with the issues. Classify everything. Let us sit in peace. And this is what I did not get. And I had no support. They did a lot of things to me, but I forgive them. And I started talking back to them late last year. Because God said, if you cannot forgive, how can He forgive you? But I see everybody has problems.
yes.
And I don't ever classify anybody a narcissist, crazy, mad. Because if you look at social media, you'll see, seeing this woman that is, let me just give a short example. This lady who is on the promenade, that is in a little tent, she's begging for a home. We do not know her issue. But here she's getting on with vengeance, and she's just to the media. She want to get out there with her problems. But if you look at the comments, and sometimes they say it's only when you're in a situation, you know how it feels. So, but my God is my Redeemer, and He lives. Okay. Good night and have a blessed one.
All right, so she'll answer you now. Thanks. Go ahead.
Had those experiences. The thing about mental illness is we often look at mental illness in the context of abnormality, abnormal behaviors, grossly abnormal behaviors that are way abnormal, right? So I'm not sure who the person on the promenade that she was talking about, but there's always a way that is considered socially acceptable in terms of dealing with certain things. And it's one instance if somebody, acts out of the norm in one instance, but if they constantly kind of act out of the norm in a way that is maladaptive or in a way that creates more problems for themselves or problems for other people, or that shows that they're really not coping or they don't know how to cope in a healthy way, then yes, you might consider that something may be happening psychologically that might be leading to that. But it doesn't always necessarily mean, hey, they've got a diagnosis of an illness. Just like we have physical illnesses, there are mental illnesses, and it is a very, very, very real thing. And I think the more that we bury our heads in the sand about mental illness, and the more that we deny it, is the more that stigma exists, and the harder that it is for people to get help, to seek help. So, and that's one of the reasons that I hate this word crazy, because what is crazy? Nobody wants to be cast or called crazy. It's a derogatory term, and it's not a diagnosis. If you have a depressive disorder, or you have a psychotic disorder, illness, or you have a personality disorder, that's one thing. But to be just called crazy, it's kind of like casting you out to somewhere as an outcast.
It's hard to get out from under.
Yes. And the thing about it is we have to be compassionate when talking about and treating with any illness. The same way we would feel empathy for the cancer patient or the diabetes patient. Somebody who's struggling mentally nobody desires to experience a mental health struggle, or to be super stressed out, or to turn people off and away from them, or to not know how to handle different situations. Nobody desires that. So sometimes people just need help, and the more we improve our attitude towards these things, the more likely it is that people will get help, and that is, oh God, that's a dream. As a psychologist, I'm telling you, that's a dream. That's what I want to say.
Can narcissism be a result of dealing with trauma?
Yes, it quite often can be, because it's oftentimes the person who has developed the narcissistic personality disorder, they have developed it as a defense to feelings of inferiority.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
of course.
So it's like if you, I'm not
make a
casting it like that, but you say some people have an inferiority complex.
Yeah. So they make a 360, so it's to protect them. So we all use defense mechanisms, right? It's normal to use defense mechanisms. Anxiety. You go, okay.
Go ahead. Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening. Good evening.
One aspect of narcissism.
I'm not hearing you clear. Can you speak up, please?
One aspect of narcissism is you always want to come out on top, you want to come out shining, although you're guilty. You know, so you always take out yourself. You always want to look good, although you're guilty.
Yeah, he's right.
In every situation, so you find lies, come up and, you know, that kind of thing.
I hear you. Okay, thanks for your contribution. You can WhatsApp us as well, 2751981. Send a voice note. And I'm here with clinical psychologist Kellyanne McFarlane. And we're talking about the narcissistic personality disorder, and some of the things she highlighted. You know, it would be to a norm to some, but it's something that you can look at, even internalize as well. And it's about you know, this grandiose sense of importance, self-importance, and that believing that they're very special.
So we were talking about where it comes from,
Right.
because you specifically, Curtis had asked if it could come. It could
Right.
be, so it can be. It can also be learned, but
Learned narcissism.
certainly if you're
Parenting for-
yeah. So it's sort of embedded, you know. So as I was saying, we all experience. We all use defenses, right? Projection. So I have something that I'm not proud of, that is a part of my personality, and I say, oh, that's you, you're doing that, when you're not. We use displacement. The person come home from work, the boss buff them up and they embarrass, so they take it out on their children or somebody less threatening. So people use defenses, and oftentimes, except for that displacement one, oftentimes defense mechanisms are healthy. It's our brain's way of protecting us from anxiety and negative emotions. When we overuse it or we become dependent on it, that's when it becomes a problem, a pathology. So in terms of narcissism, a lot of the things that we see in the narcissistic person are some form of defense, and that has become pathological because they've used it so much that they sold it 100%. And it's necessary to protect them, right? So that's why we say, you know, sometimes you can empathize with the person with the personality disorder and say that, you know, it comes from some sort of really deep hurt.
Is it somebody saying, is it that they play on your emotions and your sympathy, or they play on persons who feel sorry for others very easily?
A narcissist would prey on anybody. It doesn't matter, because the thing about it is they're drinking their own Kool-Aid. They really believe that stuff about themselves. I don't care what your personality is. You need to get on board.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, the discussion is interesting. Yeah, narcissism is excessive self-interest in oneself, and from that springs one's behavioral pattern. Is it?
Yeah, he's saying it.
Yeah. So that is one aspect of it, certainly.
Yeah. Okay then.
All right, thanks for your
Excessive
contribution.
self-interest and excessive expectation for other people to be equally as interested in themselves. So they have put themselves on that pedestal, and you better see them there.
So to me, it sounds like it's important that emotion and intelligence be something to be aware of on both sides.
Yes.
Both on the part of the narcissist, if possible, and the victim of that narcissism.
Emotional intelligence is not something you might find that a narcissist has because they're not concerned. Yeah, they're not concerned with how they're affecting you really.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sister Donna.
Hi, Brother Eastman. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm going good. Thanks for the little shout out on thing.
Nice.
Good evening to Brother Plutus and
How you doing, Brother Eastman?
Yeah, no. Sister, not to say a bastard, yeah. What you're saying, you're enlightening plenty people. But we have to go beyond that and know that Jesus will cover all that. Because all these things will make people do this and feel so. It's of the devil. Right? So what you have to do is remember that since in your mother's womb, God taking care of you up to today. That air, that bread, we breathe, you know? So what else again God wouldn't do? But he said he will never leave us or forsake us. But we just run from him. You feel you're mad, or you feel you're this. Jesus is it.
And we are, we are saying that, but this is life, and you know that, Brother Eastman. So therefore, we are enlightened. We are enlightening so that we are aware, so persons can get help and get the deliverance they need.
I said his sister is enlightening plenty people because I accept all what she said. But I, as an elderly, close to my 70 years, I come back in school. I ain't let go on Jesus at all. So that is
you can't afford to do that. We can't. Don't let go. I think I gotta get that song. Yeah. You pull out that song. I think that David Matters are feeling it, Brother Eastman.
The people who don't know. What is sister doing? She helping. She's working for God. In a section like how Sister Donna doing the work to enlighten the youth and them. So I'm not bashing nobody, I'm raising up all here. But I also letting you know we're in the world and we're not off the world. So we have to hold on, we salt and light in the world. And these people who having the problem and feeling them mad, you know, Jesus is the problem solver. He's the healer. He's the peacemaker. So if I don't call and talk about Jesus now, when judgment day come, you will say, I know you not. So I want them to say, yes, my son, because the tune you play for me, I was that. I'm not that again. So sister, keep on doing the good work. And good night to Ann Ramdial, Mr. Ramdial, Israel, and Moses, and Sister Elcock, and the whole crew, which is the best station in the world. I love all that.
Wonderful.
You know, you said something so powerful there as well, because she identified that as well. You know, sometimes people call people crazy, you know, just like that, and that will hurt them as well. You know, it casts them out.
You know, something I always say, I believe all healing comes from God. I also have to recognize that sometimes God heals through other people. This is why I think that it is so important that we have persons like yourself enlighten the whole nation, because there are traits that you might have seen or that might be present within you that you need to recognize and say, you know what? Let me go and get healing. Let me go by someone that is able to heal.
And mental health is a serious thing.
Definitely.
My sister abroad, she one time reached out on Facebook for help because she has twins, and she has one daughter. She was here with us for Christmas, and the other daughter has a mental problem. And she could not. She says sometimes she would run out because you know the United States is different to Trinidad. So sometimes she would run out. She says, "Get a helicopter over my house. We can't find her." You know, that kind of thing. She may run into somebody's home, and so it's something so real. You know,
people go through it.
And you know, I saw into her last night. I was like, okay, and because you know, she actually is at a place now because you know, and they would call if something happened, so she ran.
Right.
You know, so she has a lot of her family, and it's a lot. So sometimes even persons dealing with people with mental health, there are challenges for them, and we never know what somebody's going through. But once we make you aware, then you can look for the signs, because it was just a child that was given trouble. You understand? And then some things you realize that this is out of sorts, you know, this is not normal, that demand for attention, and you know, and all that.
And what I find too is that a lot of times, a lot of people feel alone. 1 in 4 persons experience a mental health problem in any given year. That's a very high statistic.
And she's online. She said yes.
Right? 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people experience something. I mean, it could be the most common ones are depression and anxiety, right? And stress and stuff like that. But 1 in 4 people, and a lot of times people do think they're alone, and that is another thing that makes them not ask for help. I remember several times I would work with clients, and they would when they understand that there are other people who experience these things, people would actually, even in this day and age, which is, you know, say, really, I didn't know other people really have this thing, and you know what it is. And because I do a lot of psychoeducation, even in my practice, I teach people, because I don't want you to be in therapy forever and ever, amen. I want you to understand what you're experiencing. If you go to the doctor and you have a non-communicable disease like diabetes or something, you want to understand what it is and how you could treat it. You don't want to be in the doctor's office every Monday morning because it's expensive. Right? So you give them the
she's a caring psychologist.
Of course, yes. I love people. And that's why I love doing things like this, because people need to know. I want us to be in a place, and America has gotten there, but I want us to get there. We're getting there. I want us to go faster.
Speed up a little bit.
Where we take care of ourselves. And just as the brother was saying just now, you know, religion and church and your congregation and so on is quite helpful, because a major factor in getting healing from any disease, even things like cancer, is your social support circle. There are people who don't have any social support, and that is difficult for people to understand. You know, nobody that they can actually call and say, take me out of the situation. There's right. And so sometimes God or your church, you know, provides that for you. You understand? But we all work together. We all work together to help people. So I always talk about mental health as being on a spectrum, right? In that on the top of the spectrum, we perceive ourselves as capable, able to cope, able to do the things that we want to do, self-efficacy is high, etc. And at the bottom of the spectrum, of the trajectory, that none of that, right? So we want people move up and down all day, every day. And you said something to that effect earlier, right? People move up and down that every day, and it could be something in work, because we have psychological injuries, rejection, you know, so people move up and down, and what we want to do is try to continue to help people to move up and to learn how to keep yourself moving up, how to build resilience. And a big part of that is your social network, is your religion, is your faith. You know, all of those things do help. But added to that, just like with the typical physical illnesses that we know, mental illnesses do have a chemical imbalance. Yes, so there is something in the brain that's happening, something in the body that's happening that is undeniable, and people who experience it will tell you it's undeniable. And so sometimes we just need some treatment. Just like we need insulin, we might need either some medication, some psychological medication, or some psychotherapy to help us kind of figure out what has been going on. We talk to people all the time. So we talk to somebody who has more of a clinical and research insight into the things that drive people. So there's really
someone
nothing.
is asking, they said, good night, can someone with narcissist qualities turn and tell the other person that they are selfish, they are controlling, but you know you are not like that, and they are the ones that are selfish, and when you try to talk to them, talk to them point out everything to you that makes you feel it's your fault and like you have a problem and you're crazy.
So that's the gaslighting.
That's the gaslighting.
And
that's
yes.
what you call it.
So yes. So yes.
They turn the behavior.
That's correct. They project, they pull out all the defenses. They project, they displace, they distract, they gaslight, manipulate.
Are they sensitive as well?
Very. Wow. Very sensitive, certainly. Do you see, because when you threaten that sense of grandiosity, that sense of importance, if they lose that takes them back into that shell of a person that where that insecurity came from, into that trauma. They don't want to go back there.
Wow.
They're not actively aware of this, huh? Mm-hmm. If they work it through in therapy, they will become aware of it.
So how do you advise someone with traits that they need help? They wouldn't take it lightly. Also, I want to say, if you're on my Facebook page, you can WhatsApp 275-1981 and you can send a voice note, because I realize, Trisha, you're very interactive, very engaging. She's saying, a lot of what you're saying is so true, and they always blame others and that kind of thing. And she's a parent that has a child with a disorder, so hence the reason she's informed as well, not in Trinidad. Yes. But you could also voice note us 275-1981, so we'll hear your comments as well.
Sure. What was it? You asked me a question just
The question was, the person wanted to find out, yes, if they blame the other person and then let them believe that they're crazy and they're the problem.
Yeah, the gaslighting. That's common with narcissists, yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
so to that WhatsApper, yes, running away always, this person says, running away is always an option for some, but there's fear. And it's hard sometimes, and I think that person probably is involved. So therefore, how does someone break away?
Right. Well, so we don't want to blur the lines between narcissism and abuse. So when you're talking about needing to run away and being afraid of running away, that means there's intense fear of the person bringing some sort of harm to you or being a threat to you. And we know that we've got a lot of that happening in Trinidad.
Yeah. So we're we're getting in there, because that's another sore point for us as women, really, and that kind of abuse.
So an abusive partner might, you will see some of these traits that I talked about spill over into abuse. But so that's two kind of different things. With a narcissist, basically, they are repellents, so to speak. You don't subscribe to their grandiosity, first of all. They're not going to like it, and they're not going to like you. Right? They're not going to dwell in that space, right? That's a fouler room.
So they're very much able to take the emotions out of it and just stick to what appeases them.
Yeah.
And what makes them happy.
Right.
In a relationship, they could do that too?
When they're able to do what?
If they're able to separate their emotions and just make everything just about them, in the sense of their needs, meeting, because you said that earlier, meeting their needs, their requirements.
Well, there are emotions, but if you look at the cognitive aspect of it, the emotions are as a result of what you're not doing to fulfill what they think should be fulfilled for them. That's kind of
convoluted. But the narcissist, how is there an emotional bond? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How
because it serves, so you serve them in some kind of way, and they appreciate your serving them emotionally.
More than they would serve you?
No, they could love you, but they
could only love you when you're serving them. They can't love you for you.
And because you're serving them. So what they love
So they actually love the fact that they are being served.
They love what you're giving them.
Because remember, you're making them feel like royalty.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't love you as an individual, as a person.
Wow.
They may not get deep enough into
They love what you can do for them.
Yeah, that's it.
They love you as an individual if you're very submissive, I suppose. I love this submissive person because this is exactly what I need. I like you to boldface.
Yeah, but then
they would like you.
Then they just love the submission.
But they don't love you.
Well, I guess it's how you look at it. But yes, they do love submission. They need submission. I don't know if they love the submission, but they need submission. It's part of the package. It makes sense. It's how they get served. It's how they get, you know.
That's what boosts their ego.
Correct.
Good. Have a voice note. I want to have some voice notes. Let me just stop my background music so I can hear.
Suffering from this same disorder. And I have been asking the Holy Spirit, I said, Lord Jesus, help me to work with this individual. Now, this individual recently came into the company and she worked alongside me. And it's like nothing that I tell her to do, she does. I speak to the boss. I haven't seen anything, you know, come out of it. And she don't listen to anyone that is like don't have the qualifications as paperwork, the qualification as herself. And at the end of the day, I don't have the same qualifications as her, but I am in a position where she have to work alongside me. This individual comes, don't speak to you, through talk, very immature though, and if I tell her to do something, she pretends she don't hear me. And then when I said, didn't you hear me? Say, you never told me that, you never said that. And it is creating discomfort for me. I keep asking the Holy Spirit for peace, 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 because we spend most of our day at work. I just need help on how to work with these individuals. I try to keep to myself, don't have much to say. If you go to tell her this needs to get done, her face, she puts on this face and this attitude, you see it. It's like you can't tell her to do anything because you are not qualified as her. So I need to know how to work alongside these type of people. Now, that is not my personality. I like to work and laugh and, you know, but since she came into the company and working alongside me, the air is dim.
Wow.
It's not.
Wow. Yeah. Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually coming from church. I'm calling from Tobago, right? And I was so surprised you all talking about this behavior. Because I now got out today self. I now got out of an 18-year relationship with a narcissistic person.
Wow.
So, you know, I was surprised when I tune in, I get into the vehicle and I hear you all talking about that. So, yeah, they turn everything
That's
on.
the Holy Spirit. Go ahead, tell us your experience.
The narcissistic person, they turn on everything on you. They always play a victim role. They are very selfish. You have to do everything to satisfy them.
Wow.
And I could go on and on. You know, it's a...
So what was your turning point? What was your turning point when you realized that you can't deal with it anymore?
Because he did something and was his really fault. And then he started to curse yesterday while he home. And then after came the threat. So the threat was the turning point. And when my son heard him cursing yesterday morning, he came into the kitchen and I was cooking and he said, no, we leaving here tomorrow self. Which is today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there abuse in the relationship as well?
Yes. There was. Physical, emotional, everything.
Well, I pray God strengthens you in this season and you really, as you seek Him, you'll be able to be stronger. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. God bless you. Have a good evening. So back to our WhatsApp person, and I'll play the other voice notes as we go along.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear she got out of that that toxic environment situation. So with the WhatsApp person, I mean, I would. Okay, so as a psychologist, I'll tell you one time as a social scientist, and we do investigation before we even give it. We don't even give advice, but before we actually touch something, we need to know the information. But I wonder if this situation that she's having with this person is that person behaving that way with everyone or just with her. Is this a sort of a personal issue that the person has that she has not communicated to that lady, and that poor woman probably doesn't even know that this lady is thinking that she did something or said something that she never said, or that she acted in a way that she didn't like, that she felt disrespected. We don't know. So I think if she feels safe and okay to do it, I would try to ask the person, I realize that I've been experiencing this from you, this and this and this, and try to stay focused always. A rule in conflict management is always to focus on the problem and not on the person. So never you don't use you ain't doing this and you, but I've noticed that certain things happen when we're around each other, and I'm wondering if that was as a result of anything that I have done to you, or is it that you have negative feelings towards me, and just find out what that is. And then you know how to work on it from there. If the person is like that to everybody else, then that is an issue in that person's personality. And more times than not, what ends up happening is other staff have an issue with the person, and at some point a manager gets involved, and some sort of conflict resolution should happen, because they would be disrupting the workflow.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening, you're live.
Madonna Lynette is calling back just to add also that they are very liars, right? And a secret person will lose you the innocent people in jail. So one have to be very conscious about that as well, right? And that, I would say that is the worst part in them. They're lying, they just drive blatant lies. That is, I will tell you, really, really killing.
Thanks. All right.
What they love, and to me, is the control. That is what drives them. The idea that they are able to dictate your pace, say how, when, why. This is a part of them that feeds on whatever it is that's inside. So if you go in the opposite direction, it's like a hit. Like, what? Whoa, like, what are you doing? You're not listening to me. You're not following instructions. You're not... You understand? That's how it's supposed to be. I am the head, you are the tail. I can't be the tail when I am also the head, but your position is your position, and this is mine. And it can't go any other way. As you said earlier, my way or the highway. Wow. Of course, sorry for all the messages.
No problem. And something Lynette said which was so true, because I remember talking to my girl and she was saying that that's probably what caused the whole, probably if you want to say breakup, that the lies, that they would so subtly lie and you wouldn't believe that, why are you lying? Why don't you just, say what you have to say and, deal with whatever comes after that. But that whole lying is a big thing.
It seems that they don't like you to give them orders. And as you say, they love submission.
Yeah.
All right. Sure. Okay. And somebody says, is it possible to stay in a marriage with that type of person you are describing, especially if they are verbally and psychologically abusive?
Yes. If it's possible, anything is possible. Is it healthy? No. but I'm not saying that therefore you should leave your marriage. What I'm saying is that some sort of intervention has to happen, right? That person has to you'll have to get to a point where you'll communicate in a more healthy and adaptable manner. Or if it is that person does have a disorder, they need to kind of get treatment and sort that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know we so is there anything Dean you'd like to say, like have you encountered or interacted with anybody who you would want to think that would have had some sort of narcissistic behavior?
It's possible. And what I was thinking is, what would cause a person to reach in such a far distance in a relationship like that, where they would have missed those signs and those red flags, and possibly what in that person might be needy or so. that they would have allowed that to go on for so long. Because if you're not aware of that type of behavior and you don't know how to diagnose it, it might be easy.
You might think it's a norm.
You may think it's a norm. You may think this person just has a certain attitude. You may call it an attitude. You know. But I think it's important, and I'm glad we're talking about it, and because it's important for us to kind of begin to recognize and differentiate from just an attitude as to what 1, 2, 3, 4, what the symptoms or what the behavior is, and how can we actually avoid it before you get too far into a relationship. Because when the emotions become involved, then it becomes obviously more difficult. Yeah.
So the person in the marriage, when you were saying that obviously the situation might be toxic, then she should seek counsel.
Sure, yeah.
So
they could do couples counseling.
Seek counsel.
Yeah.
To help you mentally deal and understand, your situation, so you would be a better person. Yeah.
And by the way, every abusive spouse is not narcissistic. And I know there's a lot of overlap, but there are subtle things that we would know that this is not necessarily an expression of narcissistic personality disorder. And that's why I always say, as much as you might Google something and it looks like this is it certainly fits this. If you're not a mental health professional, you haven't been trained to truly understand the ins and outs of mental illness, don't diagnose, right? There are subtle differences, and many disorders, many illnesses have a lot of overlap, and so we can't go, and some of them you have traits and they're not even disorders. So, every dysfunctional, toxic person is not narcissistic, and a lot of people diagnose their spouses, especially when they break up, with narcissistic personality disorder. Real people do that from Google. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it at all.
All right. Well, we're here with clinical psychologist Kelly, and we want to break to give you the sound feature. When we come back, some very, we kind of like jump out the box a little bit, and you'll hear some comments that you probably might say, hey, I saw that happen before, and then, it's good that you can get counsel, but we got the sound feature coming up.
Register now for 1-year MSc in Network Security or Information Communication and Technology, ICT, from Anglo-Ruskin University, currently ranked in the top 1% of the best universities in the world by the Times Higher Education Global Ranking. Graduates of these programs are hired by the largest technology-based...
All right, so we're back with you. David Matas. See, we starting to have a lot of music people that I kind of meet on a one-on-one. I'm JC Radical. You're next, huh? I'm bringing on my boy JC Radical and Garnett Senath. God Senath. Yes. Just sending it out there. And this evening we're talking about mental health, and as a young adult, you may ask, let me find our little thing to play. Children of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Yeah, that's the kind of people that we are targeting. Yeah. And because you would have gone through, different stages in life, and now you're so much more informed and want to be more informed in order to deal with life issues as well, and that kind of thing. So hence the reason we bring this to the table. And as we grow, we realize so many different personalities that we interact with, and we're not just taking it for granted that it's a personality and it's a norm, but we understand that there are some issues as well with the personalities. So behind the scenes, we're always talking about things behind the scenes, and we were talking about the other types of behaviors. But before we wouldn't bring the curtains down on the narcissistic traits, but I just wanted to highlight it again, the self-absorbed, self-obsessed behavior as well. And we also mentioned just now, we were talking about OCD. I'm sure everybody knows somebody who is OCD. And I was sharing with them, I had a class, and my teacher, she said to us, she's OCD. when you come in the classroom, you made the chairs this way, the color scheme is a particular way, and the paper to handouts is a particular way as well. And there was one person felt stifled in that environment, and she just had the class in disorder, and the teacher was going crazy, you know. And but you know, Miss McFarlane here is saying that it's real, you know. And so in your analysis,
yes,
and your interaction with clients, how do they respond when things are out of sorts, as it were?
All right. So, like the name of the disorder tells us, obsessive compulsive disorder, the person obsesses about something or some things, about the way something should be, and they are compelled, they have a compulsion to fix it, to change it, to make sure the door is locked. Otherwise, it invokes a lot of anxiety in them, right? So there's a physiological and a cognitive and emotional sort of component to it. So that person would struggle quite a lot. And I know sometimes people use OCD, it just rolls off the tongue very casually and nonchalantly because they have a preference for something. So like we were talking just now about, okay, but this person might need this thing a certain way, and it might just be this one thing. Oh gosh, I just like it when it's like this. That could be just a preference, right? The person isn't obsessing about it. If they leave home all day, they can't focus and work. So somebody who has an obsessive compulsive disorder or illness, right? Let's say their thing is making sure the house is locked. And so that person must check the lock 6 times. It has to be 6 times every time inside, 6 times outside. So they would have these routines, so to speak, right? If they try to not do that, the amount of anxiety they feel when they get to wherever else they were going, they won't be able to function, to cope. They would leave work or school, wherever they are, go back home, if that's from South to Arima, it don't matter, go back there and check that lock. It's not, there's no going through the day without it. It's very, very difficult. So this is obviously, then you can see this is a difference between a preference and an obsession. They will be obsessed with it, right? And it's not a pleasant feeling when they don't carry out their compulsion.
Wow. I was wondering if some people get over this, like during childhood, if they may have a symptom or behavior that's repetitive, like what you were just saying.
Yeah.
Do some people get over it naturally?
If it's very mild, I mean, there may be rare cases where people do, but OCD is an anxiety disorder, and anxiety and depression tend to be chronic. So what happens is you go into remission, but there could usually be triggers to make, to send you back into that place of, going through your OCD sort of routines and so on. And remember, like I talked about defenses, these things are done to protect us. It's the brain's way of trying to protect us, but in a bit of a dysfunctional way, for whatever reason, right? In a bit of a dysfunctional way. So So you could use defenses and that could become pathological, or you could use these things and that becomes pathological. So there's a genetic component to it, just like most illnesses. And so a lot of times with mental health problems, what usually brings on a mental illness is the stress. So we would have the genetics, and then some sort of stress would trigger it to happening. So, you could have diabetes in your family or high blood pressure in your family, and then your diet now contributes to it actually manifesting, so to speak, right? It's the same thing with mental health, mental illnesses, right? So, the stress now is the diet. The stress is the food instead. Or sometimes it just happens. It's just a chemical thing. It's just a biological thing, and it happens.
So, for example, falling out with somebody or something like that could trigger.
If the fallout is meaningful enough, right? Yeah, if it's meaningful enough, it actually causes stress. Because you could fall out with somebody you don't really care about, and it was just a fallout. It happens every day.
Oh, wow.
So that's what they meant when they used to say a long time, don't get men on the wrong side.
Yeah, I suppose.
got Houston. Hi, Daryl. How you doing? Wow, I've got Houston. I've got LA. I've got Long Island. Wow. I'm just feeling like we just global. You know? Yeah, we just global. We're talking about the narcissistic, Mr. Moses, and we were just talking about OCD. I don't know if you fit into any of those categories.
I just want to just track back to the narcissism once more. I feel that the person, I remember one person said that they got out of a relationship after 18 years, and it seems like they have children out of that relationship. And then I was trying to figure out, or to help them learn how to co-parent now with a narcissist.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing that?
So it's really tough, and it's oftentimes, something that worries the non-narcissist or the non-toxic parent. But anyway, forget that. Forget the legal part of it. So what you would need to do then is buffer whatever the child is experiencing there. It's very difficult because a lot of times children learn and develop from the adults in their life. So first of all, it depends on how old is this child, right? Because they're more sort of susceptible to developing different behaviors and to social learning depending on their age. So if the child is very young, it's likely that every time, you ever hear parents say, every time they come back from that parent, I have to undo and retrain every single weekend, every single time, because they go and a child will watch a karate show and start to fight, whole lady child fighting, right? So children are very, very susceptible, but they're also very resilient. So, I always encourage parents, to talk to children. A lot of times we tend to think that we don't need to talk to children because they're children. We don't need to explain things to them because they're children. But children are very, very, they are so aware, and they're always interested, and they want to know. They open, they open books, they blank slates. So talk to kids about what has happened at mom's or dad's, whoever the other parent is, and help to process some of the things that you think are the more toxic things. Ask your child, how did you feel about it when dad said that, or when mom said that, or when they did this or did that? Yeah, no, that's what Yeah, because let me tell you something about kids, right? You see this prefrontal cortex? It's not fully developed until we in our 20s, 20-something, right? I can't remember the exact age. But how it develops is through interaction with adults who have developed ones. Right. So if a child is neglected, it doesn't develop properly. Right. And we need that for problem solving, rationalizing, right? So all of our executive functions. So having those conversations are very important. Help the child to mature in a healthy way, right? And most times children do interpret things, whether they interpret them correctly or not, and that's where you come in.
I remember.
Can you give out your number?
Sure.
Yes, sure. I'm getting messages for persons to contact you.
763-3937.
You got that? 763-3937. Yeah.
I remember as a child, I saw my parents in different situations, and I saw the effect that it had on my mom. Yeah. And I took it to heart because, right? And I don't think that my mother actually understood that I saw, and I could experience and recognize what was going on. And she tried, of course, to protect me and stuff like that by not telling me how she felt.
And that's how parents were long ago. They had a lot from us, and they thought it was better for us.
And that's what I'm saying. So a lot of parents, they keep the details of the situation away from the children, thinking that, you know what, they can't understand and they are not affected. But it really does affect the children.
But those questions you're talking about, and maybe because I didn't believe in counseling until I went through that kind of separation and that trauma, and with taking my daughter, then I saw it affected her. So it's the reason I asked you questions, so that we can have that conversation, and it helped a lot, So it's only then I understood it, because I saw how it affected her at that point in time. And that psychologist the school had actually, and she was amazing with that session. Actually, I want to bring her on Woman, I promise. She was really, really good in treating with children, and how when they go through that kind of separation, maybe it's a divorce, and we don't realize how it affects them mentally. And then you see they have their behavior strange, and it's a lot that they take on. And we see it in the movies. Sometimes you quarreling and they peeping, and you don't know they're peeping because
and
you
they're making assessments, and the assessments are wrong a lot of the times. They're blaming themselves.
Is not properly informed. Because you haven't sat down with the child and told them all the details of the situation, what is going on. So all they see, that little snippet, they have to make their assessment based on that, which is always going to be incorrect.
Because they don't have experience and stuff. They say, well,
and they can't manage all the emotions that is coming to them. And that's something that I learned, because sometimes I would used to pour on my daughter, and then the Holy Spirit actually told me, she's not able to handle.
She's not, cognitive. She
Mm-hmm.
can't solve problems. So it will overwhelm her. But she's at the stage of developing those skills. So we are supposed to help them to do that. So even if you do share things with them, you still gather from them what they think. But mommy knows how to fix it. Mommy knows how to handle it. You're not expected to solve it.
And this was something the older folks had. They always said children are supposed to get involved when big people talk. So you find, right? And so they kept things from us, and now I realize why as well, because we really couldn't handle it, all of it as well. So now even that is something we shouldn't, because some parents think they could tell the children everything, but they, like she's saying rightly, they cannot handle it. So we should also watch what we say in front of them, and the information we give to them should be what we want them to process, and we know they can process at that point in time.
And remember, they're learning that. So how they see mom and dad handle conflict is likely how they're going to handle conflict in school and in their own relationships. So they're learning. So we wouldn't necessarily involve them in the neighbor business. But if something happening in their house right in front of them, we need to process it with them. Like, what are you thinking this is about? And the things they might hear them say, they think they might be like, oh, wow, it's a good thing I had this conversation with a child.
And sometimes I would see some behaviors and I'd be like, okay, and I need to change this because I might go this way. Because, they really do learn
I would say all information is shared with children should be age and stage appropriate.
Sure, certainly.
So you can't just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you everything.
Age and stage appropriate, I like that one. Age and stage appropriate.
Because they're going in school and they're carrying those same messages. And then you are the one who sent it. You.
And then, they'll call your number.
Know their business.
All that.
And even in preschool, I remember in preschool, you're hearing teachers talking about, they can tell what happened home, because they would come and say, mommy and daddy, and they're telling the teacher everything, and then, they would call and they'd be like, wow. So watch what you do, what you say in front of them, because you thinking, okay, this home, but they're children, and they would tell their friends, and especially the toddlers, I want to just stretch you a little further. No, she didn't expect all of this, right? She came to deal with the narcissist, but now with all the conversations we're having and the WhatsApp messages, this is another trigger in Trinidad and Tobago, and everybody as well. You hear people who are not the experts diagnose everybody as bipolar, right? And that behavior, but there's something prevalent in Trinidad and Tobago. I know you didn't plan for that one, but you could, from your experience, give us some of the traits of somebody who's bipolar.
Sure. So a lot of times when people use the word bipolar loosely, they kind of just mean, well, we cool this morning, we're getting on so forth. You're a little labile, emotionally labile, and we fly off the hinges a little bit. Maybe you need some anger management.
Emotionally labile. I don't want kids to think I'm running when I want to. Like, I like a song.
We need some labile. Need a little bit of anger management or something. But bipolar disorder is a serious disorder. Again, well, as I've said with everything, all these disorders are serious. So bipolar disorder, you have bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So one ranges from very low mood for a period of time to mania.
When you say low mood, what do you mean?
So sadness, irritability, depression. So sadness, irritability, feel like you can't get out of bed,
crying, loss of appetite, loss of interest in people, isolation. All of these are symptoms of depression. So a severe depression, and then mania. So mania is the other stage of bipolar disorder, whereby a person now, have you ever seen this movie, which I can't remember, right, so where the person feels almost like they have a superpower, so they don't need to sleep. A person who is manic might go without sleeping for days straight. They don't need to sleep. They have all these grandiose thoughts that they can do these things that other people might not be able to do, but they also feel very creative at that point in time. So that person might just be churning out work and writing things and, almost erratic behavior. So, and they might be quite hyperactive and excited and bouncing off the walls, So manic, right? So you kind of go between those two things. And for some people as well with bipolar disorder, there's a psychotic aspect of it, whereby they might start to see and hear things that aren't there or that others around them won't see and hear. So that's when they're in their manic phase, right? So I mean, it goes without saying that this makes it difficult for them to keep jobs and relationships and stuff because of this switch in the behaviors. And both it's too extreme. So that's why we say bipolar. It's one, two sides of the pole, right? Wrong, yeah. So
extreme hot or extreme cold.
Yeah, right. But bipolar disorder could also resemble sort of like a cyclical mood change, in that they get very sad and then they're just above the baseline of what is normal. So they're just a bit manic, but not as I said just now, right? But the struggle is in maintaining those moods and not knowing. There's no necessary trigger, not knowing why I'm feeling this way or why I can't cope today, why I can't function today.
Trigger. So that's the whole chemical thing you were talking about.
Exactly. So it's illness. I mean, it's an illness, so illnesses are never fun. So
in a relationship, how someone detects that they may be bipolar, because what I've learned is, as well, I've heard people talk about that. This is older people do, that persons and I looked it up actually, that are diabetic, I don't know which stage of the diabetes, that they are argumentative as well.
Okay. So
because it affects something in the brain
right.
and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So sometimes when people and for no reason they would just lash out and that kind of thing, break up things in the house, I was told, and that kind of thing. And so somebody with that behavior, that be as a result of their sickness. So it may not be bipolar, because when the sugar level good, they okay.
Oh yeah, well. So if what they're experiencing is a direct indirect relation to another illness, then you don't diagnose a mental illness, right? So even again, that's why I say we leave it to the experts in diagnosing mental illnesses. We do look to see, is there another physical illness? Are you on medication? Because sometimes medications there might be a side effect. We don't just pelt out diagnoses of mental illnesses, because it's a very serious thing, right? So I guess in a relationship now, it would definitely affect your relationship, because it's difficult if you have a partner who is very depressed. If you've ever experienced what depression looks like, what the depths of what intense severe depression looks like, I should say, because we don't always know what depression looks like. Any one of us in this room could have a depressive disorder, and none of us know. We come to work and we smile, we put on our nice mask, we hyper, we happy, we whatever society wants us to look like, we give them it, and we go home and we're not happy, right? And that's why sometimes we hear of suicides and stuff, and we wonder, but he was in work this morning.
Normal.
But he happy. But
just happy and laughing.
But look, he be by a house yesterday, last week. What do you have to be upset about, right? And you
hear it. I mean, just with the stars as well. When you hear all the money they have, and then you but they kill how would heaven name, you know what I mean? Your bills paid, right? All your bills paid. get some acid payment and you kill yourself. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
So in a relationship with a person with bipolar disorder, it is I guess it depends on how the partner takes it. If they feel, let's say, sorry for, they hurt for the person. Some people are, they just feel, I don't want to say insensitive, but some people, I can't deal with this. What is this? Snap out of it. Like if somebody could snap out of depression, this kind of thing. So people deal with these things in many different ways, And the best thing, of course, and I mean, well, the best thing to do is to try to get help for the person. Try to just be sensitive to what they're experiencing. Support them getting help.
I'm going to jump on something here. I'm going to throw her in the So with this legalization of cannabis, right?
Yes.
Somebody who has mental health disorder. You would have heard any times before this coming to where it is now that people who smoke weed, it affects them mentally and that kind of thing. So now, with it being legal, do you think it would have an impact on persons who would want to take it?
So what the research shows, and by research I mean, let's say, statistics from the Ministry of Health or reports from the Ministry of Health, is that people try it anyway, whether it's legal or not. I can't remember the statistic of how many people said they have tried marijuana at least once in their life, right? So I think we know that in our society, the law, while it is a deterrent, we wouldn't say that nobody smokes because of the law, right? So the next thing is, just because it's decriminalized, it doesn't mean that we have lost our ability to make decisions for ourselves.
Right.
Just because alcohol is legal, or cigarettes are legal, or chocolate, or caramel popcorn and all these other soft drink and all these things, just because things are legal doesn't mean we have to indulge or that we have to overindulge. So it's decriminalized for reasons, right? And we still have to talk to our kids. We still have to protect our kids from things the same way we have to protect them from alcohol and cigarettes. We still have to teach them about marijuana and so on. The difference here is that if somebody does get curious and want to explore or experiment, it may not land them in jail with a charge that doesn't come off of their record, or with a time in jail that takes them away from their families and changes their life forever, right? So there are a lot of pieces to this whole decriminalization, right? The next thing is, and I have said this before, we did a press release, the Association of Psychologists, and what we said is that a major part of this decriminalization is educating people about marijuana. So we hear all sorts of things about it in relation to schizophrenia and so on. I'm not a marijuana expert, right? And there are people who well study the drug, right? So I wouldn't break it all the way down, but from the research that I have read, I've been privy to, there is a link between marijuana and psychosis, but there's more to it than that. One, it's when the person started using marijuana, the age, and the amount of the frequency with which they've used the marijuana, especially from a young age, right? The next thing is the type of marijuana. So apparently, or according to research, based on the type of marijuana, it triggers psychotic symptoms like hallucinations and so on, that if you have a genetic predisposition to a psychotic illness or a mental illness, then
that's where I lead in, because I've heard that with persons even before the decriminalization, and it triggered it sent
Correct.
off.
Correct. Right? So now, and you'll hear a lot of people
Intelligent
say,
people too. I know of a guy with like, he went Fatima 7 passes.
Oh.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he on the street now.
Smoke a bad weed as it.
Yeah.
Perhaps. So, and then you'll hear people say, I had a smoke and nothing ever happened to me, but you are you and I am I. Right? You know, your parents are not my parents, your genetics are not my genetics, your stressors are not my stressors, right? Now the next thing though is that research also shows that marijuana has healing benefits for a range of disorders. Since we're talking about well, that's the thing. So the marijuana that they mix, like the skunk and so on, that marijuana it's cannabinoid. No, not cannabinoid. I can't remember the chemical in the marijuana that is added to the marijuana to what is the chemical, boy? It will come to me. But there's a chemical that's added to marijuana to sell it on the market faster. And then the without the chemical, with lower strains of the chemical, it's more used for health benefits and so on.
I know in Canada for sure, especially for persons with cancer and people who have eye problems
and pain
and that kind of thing. They have different types that they have manufactured that has been helping a lot of
But
persons.
it also works for psychosis. That's the thing.
The processed stuff.
Yeah, the unprocessed. So what it does now is it's research shows that a particular type of marijuana, and I have all this information, but I can't remember. The THC is the word I'm looking for, right?
Tetrahydrocannabinoid.
Right. Right. So the THC is what makes the difference. And so it has been shown to get to alleviate symptoms of psychosis. So the person with schizophrenia now is encouraged to take the marijuana, particular type. Again, there is a world of education, and it has to be, for health benefits, it has to be prescribed and managed by a professional. You don't just go and grab a piece of marijuana and say, hey, they say, the psychologist say this does help. No, that's not what I'm doing.
Tablet you take,
right.
That is prescribed.
Right, and it helps to alleviate the psychotic symptoms. So it helps to get rid of the voices and the hallucinations and the delusions and so on. But
that have been manufactured in Trinidad, so
I can't speak to exactly in terms of the herb itself and the chemical, but I don't think it's about it being manufactured. I think there are different types. So there's skunk and there's another. I know the skunk is, I definitely know the research pointed out the skunk as the bad one, as the one with the bad smell and a lot of stuff added to it. And then there's there's another one. But as I said, I don't talk a lot about marijuana.
That's okay.
But there's
threw it out there.
But it's interesting, and I'm glad you brought it up because a lot of people are interested in is this so dangerous and so on. But I still say, the same way, children not supposed to drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes. It's the same way they're not supposed to smoke marijuana.
Right, but you see, now
you have a plant in your house.
But if you put a plant in your house or a bottle of alcohol in your cupboard, you need to do it in a way that's sensible.
No, that's what I'm saying, because it brings an interesting dynamic, because now that it is not legalized, but what is it? Decriminalized. Right? And you can have it home. It comes just as any other controlled substance. Your alcohol, your cigarettes, your whatever. And how then do you react? And how then do you speak to your children about marijuana's use? Right? And I think that it requires a lot of educating yourself as to the good and bad, and not just listening to the talking points on TV. You really need to do some research.
I think it's just as well a matter of values that we put in our children as parents, and which we continue to do, but just as greater emphasis now is more things for us to talk about. Because it's more in your face.
But we have to remember that just because you can doesn't mean that you have to.
Exactly.
You don't need. If I have young impressionable children, you say me I will put covers on my plugs and put the glass way high and don't have an unlocked cupboard with alcohol or put a child lock on the television. It's the same way you have to protect
But
the
you
kid.
see
That's
the
your
same children
responsibility.
that you have child locks on and everything.
Yeah.
They have friends.
It was sure.
And they have friends in school.
Yes.
That parents don't have
Not
child
as
locks on.
right. So you told
This is
You know, and what he's saying is so true because, like, my daughter, there was a friend of theirs, her parents didn't give her a phone, right? After SEA, we went to Tobago, and she was showing them things on their phone, you know, and her parent didn't give her a phone.
Yes.
And she went to school for the whole
No, that's
primary school
really
life,
sure.
without a phone, but she knows how to use the phone very well, you know, that kind of thing. So sometimes, you know, you're thinking that they don't know.
Exactly.
When you think.
So I always believe in being proactive.
Yes,
And
agreed.
so as parents, if you know this is the situation, if it is that your child is likely to right experience or interact with persons of different ideals, I think it's important that you educate them along the lines, right? And so that, as you said, you have age and stage appropriate discussion with your child concerning the use of marijuana, concerning the dangers and the benefits of marijuana as it may be. And it's important that we just don't wait for the rumor mills, right, to dictate what your child does.
Yeah.
Wow. But we want to say hi to our live listeners. Samuel Selquish was here. And Curtis, I want to tell you, Curtis says you have to come on the others, okay?
Oh, that's Fahrenheit?
Yes.
Oh my God, Fahrenheit, you need to come. Fahrenheit, you need to come. Fahrenheit, we're waiting on you. Please come. We live in
He
this
saw
spot.
a song you did since 2016 and he got crazy thinking it's a new song. He literally was thinking it was a new song, you know what I'm saying?
We need you.
Hey, I want to say hi to Patrick Morgan. He's a school friend of mine somewhere in the United States. Patrick, what city or what state are you in? You can let us know that on your live, right? So I'm here with Dane. No. Yes, Dane. Dane. I don't understand. Dane Belfour and Kelly. She is our clinical psychologist, really giving us a lot of good information. And we started talking about, you know, narcissism. And we just diverted a bit. And so therefore we kind of like bringing it down because I don't want to keep her too late because she's going all the way to Arima. Although Curtis lives in Arima as well. So he can follow you up.
Oh,
but you know, I wanted to... I only connect
Kelly. Where did you get that from?
Kelly, I don't know. Kelly is her name.
It's not Kelly, huh?
It's Kelly.
The first thing she said was Kelly.
She said, I keep hearing her saying Kelly.
I said no, I was saying Kelly and something else. But I said Kelly. Yeah, I was saying Kelly and...
all the time you call her name, you call her and something
remember
else.
I was saying Kelly and Curtis and so that's what you were hearing as I introduced her,
So
yeah?
she gets Kelly on all the time.
Yeah.
We all heard you.
Every time you mention your name and...
Hello, good evening. Oh God, I missed the call. Sorry about that.
Oh my God, you can call
That's
back.
why I was saying that you're here with Kelly and Curtis and...
All the time. Every time you call
maybe
Kelly,
because I
it's
didn't
Kelly
say my
and somebody
and.
else. Like Batman and Robin.
But you see, I was introducing you on the whole panel, and so hence the reason. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, darling.
I missed some of the program, but I heard the part about mental illness. I want to know, how do I get a relative to see her who has that? I laughed when she said most of us go to Dr. Google. I did that. Up to this morning, I went online to find out how one get that. One of the things it said is press and like if they lost a loved one, and I make my own diagnosis because this one is about to retire. And all of these things we haven't been anywhere, I must admit. I just make my own diagnosis from Dr. Google. And some of these signs I see, I look it up and stuff. And like when she said, he will be, he will yell at me, but he will speak to like his mistresses and they very kind. So how do I get him to attend?
You think he bipolar or he's just talking to them soft because he don't want you to know that he's talking to them? But you can't.
Yeah, but you can't use bipolar like that. That's very much behavioral and you know probably
bipolar.
We need to have you see Kelly.
Yeah.
Not Anne.
What's the number? What's the number, Kelly?
763-3937.
All right, so you can call Kelly, and thanks for calling, love.
Kelly McFarlane.
Yes, and she would gracefully assist you here. It's in her. She really cares about her patients.
I do.
I have a friend, and he doesn't want to go see a psychologist or anything like that. How do I convince this person?
Yeah. So is the most you could do is sort of point out to him the reasons that you think that he could seek some help and that help would help him. Psychotherapy is not likely to work if the person isn't willing to do it. So the first step to getting to making any change is acceptance that a change is necessary. If you never believe a change is necessary, then why am I here? Why am I doing this?
So what about the narcissist? Because as well, you want to encourage them to get help. Maybe, you know, try going therapy. See if this would help. Or maybe you can put it in a way where we go in for counseling. So would you suggest if they wouldn't go by themselves that the person go with them?
Well, if it's your spouse, it might. Therapy is very intimate, you know. People don't realize how intimate it is. So it's awkward to have somebody, a random friend, just sitting unless the person is really, really in a vulnerable place and they don't really care at this point who hears what. But it's very intimate. You know, sometimes they go to the doctor and they ask you very personal questions, so you're not supposed to have somebody else in the room. So therapy could be very much like that because you might think you know your friend and everything about them, but when they start to spill over to the therapist about trauma that you ain't never heard about, if you're there, it won't happen. And then what are we doing?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Can you speak up for us? We can hardly hear you.
Yes. I have a very good friend. And, well, I did psychology. So I know about the different personality types. And he was a really nice person, everything. But what scared me one day, we were talking, and he said to me, when I said, you know, if God send you into my life, what. And then he said to me, I'm your God. I am your God. And he beat up his chest and everything. And he's a Christian. He was supposed to be a Christian. And he told me I'm his God, and I got scared, and I left him out. Yeah.
I think that was the important part you were talking about.
Yeah.
He told her she is his God.
He is her God.
He is her God.
So that's how, you know, that attention, that they
Well, the first thing I thought was if he was having a psychotic episode, if he really thought
well, that could be true. Well, that's
the first thing that jumped that he thinks he's God, you know.
That's a psychotic episode. I go with that one.
Is it unhealthy to try and convince the person to or just...
No, it's not unhealthy.
If you mentioned it and they said no.
Yeah, well, you see, so
because remember, they don't think anything is wrong with them.
Right. So should you still try to see, should you insist or should you...
We're talking about a narcissist here?
I'm talking about any sort of...
I mean, if you think that your friend really is in danger of harming themselves or harming someone else, certainly do try to insist. But sometimes insisting and forcing people to seek help pushes them away from you. So he might shut you out eventually. So sometimes if you see this happening, and I'm talking very generically because I don't know the specific situation, so I'm not really giving you advice, but I'm kind of talking generally. You could, sort of use a discretion and, just try to
it's sometimes it's better to be able to be in a position where you can support them, where they can come to you, where they don't feel any judgment or any sort of coercion to do something. They could just talk to you, and that helps because they know they have that support. And if that works for him, it's a good idea to be able to be that person in his life, as opposed to if you push and he pushes you away then, or he isolates himself from you because, oh gosh, Curtis is always be down my neck or whatever. I can't tell Curtis this, he gonna just start to talk as a psychologist talk, you know. Then that wouldn't be very helpful, but you could certainly bring it in every now and then. So you might want to look at why he has an attitude about going to a psychologist. What is it that he thinks? And this is where that whole thing about using certain language and stigma keeping people from getting help, that's where that is because of that.
So what language should we use?
Well, what we shouldn't use is crazy and mad. You understand?
So calm down and then talk. Because they know in the hype they'll be like, look, you just crazy. I don't want it.
Yeah, right, true.
And the other thing is stigma, because people who would have family members who might have been diagnosed with some sort of mental illness, however subtle it may be, that person may not want to be identified with that whole thing.
Exactly.
So they may hide away from it.
I see here they have shows arrogant, haughty, rude and abusive behaviors as well.
This is who? Narcissist?
This is the narcissist, yeah. And I remember people calling and talking about that. So that abuse as well. Yeah,
lack of empathy. It's what I want. It's my way or the highway. And sometimes the way to get that is... And you see, and they're arrogant because they, as I said, they're drinking their own Kool-Aid, right? They really believe that they deserve to be number one in your life. Precisely. What is talking about?
So how will you as a psychologist detect, okay, if this guy is approaching you and he starts talking with you, what would you look for?
You mean the first conversation with somebody?
Conversations.
So sometimes you meet somebody who, no, I don't go out and have a psychology hat and diagnose people and things like this. I don't do that. That's real stressful. That's too much. That's too much.
But that would be a trick for you.
What a serious thing. You take that off. How do you date a psychologist? Oh my gosh.
No.
Everything I say, I wonder.
But this psychologist is less likely to diagnose than the average person, because the average person using Dr. Google and the average person quick to call things.
And they will take it down because they know the first thing people will. That's why I'm asking.
If she has a little piece of paper and she write down your number.
Absolutely not. You're like, where writing there? Notes.
You know, she has a little pad. Just remember something.
Oh my God. So what's your relationship like with your mother? No. But I mean, if you're hanging out with somebody and you pick up on those grandiose behaviors. Now the thing about it, again, as I've been saying throughout, as a social scientist, we gather information before we make a deduction, before we make a diagnosis or an assumption. We don't work with.
I want to know to be a trigger for you. Come on, let's just throw it out there.
Well, I don't like show-offs and people who grandiose and are rude to wait staff and those kind of things. So that is a big turn off. Of course. Or who come across as controlling and telling you what to do and how to do it. I mean, those things should
feel like you're walking on eggshells.
It should be a red flag for everyone.
Anybody, but it's not. It is
because
not.
People, you know, I was talking to somebody and they said,
that red flag session.
Yeah, because people think they could tolerate certain things, and society has given you the guides as to what you should tolerate. So these red flags will come up and they will believe it's a norm.
But other reasons too. Sometimes there are people who are looking for a father figure or a mother figure, or for whatever reason, maybe they didn't have it before, so it feels refreshing. Or people who have been sort of treated like that, or seen their family members, parents, parents, etc., treat each other like that, and so they've grown to expect it and accept it. Or people who are very insecure about themselves and don't feel empowered, and so they do see these things, and that it almost feels like the comfort zone. You're meant to fit into somebody's cocoon and be sort of told what to do. So for many, sometimes for dysfunctional reasons, sometimes just because it's a preference, like, you know. So people in those positions might all of a sudden wake up and be like, wait a second, this isn't just a macho thing, this is an abuse thing, this is a narcissistic thing, or this is a antisocial personality disorder thing, or, you know, and in a web of control and abuse by them. You know. Yeah.
All right, so wow, this has been really exciting. I really want to thank you for coming, taking the time out to share with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having a conversation like this. I love mental health. People need to know.
Yeah, it's really, you know, and the more we talk about it, the more we realize people are becoming more aware. People are doing research, going to Dr. Google, you know, as well, and that kind of thing. But it's something that we want to be really more aware of in 2020 in our interactions with people that we meet all the time, and as even and it goes across the board, not just in relationships but in workspaces as well, and that kind of thing. So it's very important to know who we are associating ourselves with, you know. So I think it was really, really great. We got a lot of interaction, all the WhatsApp messages, and wow, yeah. So thanks again. So Curtis, any closing words?
I'd just like to say a telephone number for everyone again.
Sure, 763-3937.
And if you can, because I was just so intrigued by when I read what I saw, that it was like, wow, you know, having, and you said those things, you know, that low self-esteem, and you know, why that's so important to them, that you know, endorse everything that they do, right? And a scene here where they can come across sometimes, you know, as even being very defensive, react contrary to your viewpoints with anger,
because they have to protect that thing that's protecting them, which is their image of themselves. And if you challenge that, that's danger.
They're living a lie, and you know, it comes back to me to talking to my friend a few days ago, because the person actually came from abroad, right? And she had I could say this, I don't think she listened. And she had no idea that they were married.
Right.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, and you know, and that kind of thing. And then when they had to return, it was just, you know, it was just living a lie. So she finally woke up and she's like, you know, they're narcissists. And she went up and she read about it and that kind of thing. And you're like, wow. Yeah, so, you know, it's behaviors that you want to be aware of, and ask God for that discernment as well, to know when they step in on the line. Ask him to expose. I tell you, never fail. I remember years ago, Apostle Duncan, he came and he blessed my house, and he told me, say that prayer and everything, and in 24 hours, I'm not lying. Lord, expose. And he does it, you know what I mean? And download, because you want to know the truth. You want people to be truthful.
Yes.
So, and all that, thanks again.
Sure.
And
thank you, Kelly, for sharing.
Thank you for having me. Yes, sure, you're welcome.
Anything else that we want us to want to share?
I mean, let's all, I hope if one thing this inspired is a good attitude towards understanding people with mental health struggles, that it's real and it's not imagined, and it's not them being miserable or them just trying to be difficult. People really struggle, and just as we have other illnesses that we go to the hospital and take medication and so on for, mental illness is a very, very, very real thing. And I would challenge you to find somebody who doesn't know anybody, even right in this country, that experienced some sort of, or claim to experience some sort of mental illness.
problems or mental health problems.
Wow, you make me, I'm here and I'm saying, Lord, I thank you for good health, mental health as well, because, you know, we thank God for so many things, and hearing is really, you know, heart-wrenching sometimes, hearing situations people go through, and you're saying, I'm sitting here saying, Lord, thank you for good mental health.
I'm just shocked that she says 1 in 4.
Yes, World Health Organization.
Studio, so I'm watching.
At some point in the year.
OMG, wow. All right. Well, thank you. Courtesy pass. You then take one? Okay, all right, good. All right, then. Well, again, thanks. And we give you some music. And when we come back, we close it out.
I said I learn from the good of the elders.